My name is Wolf.
And I'm Sandman of Terra, and today we're going to explain the crazy over-the-top world that nerds like us love so much, that is Warhammer 40,000.
So settle in, grab a drink, and prepare for a very special Noob-Splaining session. Now thank you Sandman for doing this video with me.
Well, I'm only here because you kidnapped my dog.
That's beside the point. Now come on, let's get on with it.
Ever since 2nd edition, each of the factions for 40k have had a distinct feel to them. The Imperial Guard were famed for massed infantry and armoured vehicles. This was by design, as guard units were cheaper in points but not very good, and the fact that you had to field at least 25% of your army from your core troop selection meant you needed to take a lot, usually 6 or 7 squads of basic infantry, just to fill that quota. And that was the way all armies were built from 2nd to 9th edition. Combined with the addition of restrictions, such as that no more than 25% could be spent on heavy support, fast attack, elites or characters, led to nice, well-balanced army lists that were split into 3 distinct types. Quantity or swarm armies with massed infantry that were not very good, like the orcs, who relied on sheer weight of numbers. Quality armies like the Space Marines with fewer but very powerful units, and those in the middle that balance the thin line between quantity and quality.
And then 10th came along and threw all of that out the highest window of Games Workshop towers. Now it's all just utter, over-the-top, bonkers possibilities, which is what we love so much about this grimdark universe. The Guard are no longer limited to having to use below average infantry. Space Marines no longer have to choose between a Dreadnought or a Land Raider. Obviously you choose the Land Raider because Land Raiders are cool.
So let's take a look at some of the factions that have changed the most. These are not rated in any order, just by how much they have changed with the release of 10th. First up is the Death Guard, the Traitor Legion, who are the sons of the Primarch Mortarion and fully devoted to the Chaos God Nurgle, who is the Lord of Pestilence and Decay. The Death Guard embody their god by bringing diseases and death wherever they do battle, inflicting entire planets and systems with disease resulting in the destruction of everything. The Taint of Nurgle is one of the hardest to remove, usually resulting in the planets themselves being totally cleansed in fire to purify them. The Death Guard Space Marines, while inflicted with horrific diseases, are completely immune to them, making them bloated, oozing with pus, and surrounded by swarms of carrion flies. This translated into them being very tough to kill and reduced chances to hit from the swarms of insects, obscuring them from the enemy's vision.
The Death Guard were one of the most tankiest of armies you could get, and could weather incoming fire all day long, while sending just as much fire back at the enemy. The major changes in 10th has taken away a lot of the little bonuses you could spend on Chaos armies to fine tune them. Instead, those are now directly built into the unit's profiles or available as stratagems. So while the followers of Nurgle are still tougher than other Chaos units, they have lost some of the army-wide abilities, and they are now into single-use per turn abilities. But they do get to debuff the enemy at close range, making them weaker, thus easier to kill in melee combat. So while not as tanky as they used to be, they are still tanky, but are also better at destroying close range units, raising their combat effectiveness quite a lot, making them a very aggressive in-your-face army instead of a smelly ranged one.
The squat civilization of the Leagues of Votann are the resident space dwarves of Warhammer 40k, and the newest faction to be added to the lineup. With them being new, their range of models is quite limited, reducing your options on the battlefield, and at the release of 10th, this showed, with them being the worst performing army, rated at 26 out of 26 in August.
And then along came the September-October stats. And good grief, the leagues are now rated rank 3 out of 26 in just a month. This can be put down to 2 things, I feel. One, that people have started to make 10th edition lists without the old limitations from every other edition in their mind. And secondly, the most recent balance slate giving the leagues extra victory points for destroying selected units. So obviously, you choose the ones easiest to kill and gain a quick technical victory.
The Imperial Guard relied on massed infantry with armoured vehicle support and typically fielded way more vehicles than any other faction, except maybe the Orcs. The basic tactic was that the infantry would move up, relying on their numbers to soak up incoming fire while they engaged enemy units in melee, preventing them from firing back. It was not uncommon for Imperial Guard to field 10 plus units of infantry, and most had 20 models to a squad, and in addition there are usually 3 or more tanks in a typical 2000 point game. But in the Imperial Guard you have to get used to the fact that most of your units will probably be dead by the end of the game. The sheer volume of models makes them a very expensive army to collect compared to something like Custodes or Space Marines.
And then along came 10th and turned all that on its head. In a 2000 point game, the Imperial Guard can field a Commissar with 2 Ogryn bodyguards, 2 Baneblades and 2 Banehammers and still have 30 points left over. Most armies will struggle to deal with 1 super heavy. Let's see how they deal with 4 of the damn things on the table.
The other famous swarm army is the Orcs. Again, masses of boys and loads of battle wagons like the Guard, but with the addition of powerful weapons just as likely to blow themselves up as they are the enemy. The Orcs don't have access to as many super heavy vehicles as the Guard do, but they do have an impressive amount of very good infantry units after the standard squads of boys.
Absolutely, and the Orc players have totally capitalised on this. Orcs now rank 2nd in the September 2023 stats, which is an impressive jump. It was jokingly said, Orc players played for fun, and if they happened to win, that was a bonus. With them now not having to spend a quarter of their points on what is arguably the worst basic troops in the games, the Orc players have really gone to town with their lists, and it goes to show how much of a threat they really are.
The ancient Eldari once ruled the galaxy, but they are now a dying race hovering on the brink of extinction. Their technology far outstrips that of any other faction save the Necrons, and this shows in their weapons of war and their extensive use of psychic abilities to predict the outcome of each battle. Being so few in number, the Eldari will only engage in warfare when they have no other choice, as each Eldari killed takes them one step closer to total annihilation. Spending most of their time on craft worlds hidden away in the webway, when the Eldari do strike, it is with precision, speed, and overwhelming firepower. And their stats show this. Since the release of 10th edition, the Eldari have been constantly at the top of the table. Many will say that this is down to their faction rules, Strands of Fate, being somewhat overpowered.
Many people will agree with that statement, but I'm afraid I have to disagree. The Strands of Fate rule still relies on dice rolls, and you're not guaranteed to get good rolls. The odds say you're only going to get 2 rolls of 6, and you might not get any at all. Also, the recent balanced data slate did take away mortal wounds on weapons with devastating hits. Now this doesn't just affect the Eldari, it affected all armies, but the core units in the 10th edition Eldari list, the Wraith Knights, were heavily reliant on those mortal wounds to make them extra devastating. Without it, they're just merely devastating. And although still top of the boards, their win percentage has dropped by a massive 10%. The changes in the leaderboards in the space of a couple of months are massive. Yes, the Eldari haven't moved from the top, but they're not as dominant as they were. A lot of other factions have seen massive moves up and down the boards, but the clear thing is they are all a lot closer to that 50% win rate, with the variance being a lot lower than at release. This tells me people are looking at their army lists very differently.
Overall, 10th edition has potentially taken away the traditional armies some factions would deploy, without it affecting others massively. Every faction has the scope to just deploy fast attack and sweep across boards, or all just heavy support units that can inflict massive damage. It is fair to say the traditional army lists are long gone. You can no longer just take a good guess at what your opponent will put on the table.
Exactly, and that alone has brought back a level of excitement to turning up and playing a random game at your local Games Workshop store or Games Club, as you will have absolutely no idea what you will be facing anymore. You can still play with the traditional armies, but if you really want to play really competitively, you're going to have to take another look at those data cards. If, of course, you're just playing for fun, then build an army you enjoy playing.
Absolutely, this is a game after all, and it is supposed to be fun. If you are not having fun, you're doing something wrong.
I agree. With that being said, I think that's enough for now. Well, thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video, and a special thanks to Sandman for agreeing to do this collaboration with me.
Yes, now it's done, can I have my dog back please?
Of course, and I will return him immediately, after our next collaboration is out.
No, Rover!